Hearings on the January 6 committee coincide with a set of primary races on Tuesday, in which a slate of Trump-endorsed candidates supports the same big lie about the 2020 election that investigators say fueled last year's Capitol insurrection. The first primary in the much-watched investigation into last year's pro-Trump rioting will feature races for Senate, House, and governorships in Nevada, South Carolina, North Dakota, and Maine. The 34th Congressional District seat in Texas will be decided by special election. In Nevada, there are a number of candidates who support the former president's evidence-free claim that the 2020 election was rigged, while two candidates in South Carolina who criticized Trump's role on January 6 or endorsed his impeachment afterward have now been tapped to run against Trump-endorsed opponents. The leading candidate in the Nevada GOP Senate primary is the state's former Attorney General Adam Laxalt, a fervent supporter of Trump. In 2020, he chaired Trump's re-election campaign in the state and supported Trump's effort to. His grandfather Paul Laxalt served as a senator for Nevada, and his father, Pete Domenici, was New Mexico's longest-serving senator. Some of the issues Laxalt is running on include stronger southern border policies, protecting the Second Amendment, and changing how elections are conducted, echoing many other conservatives running at the local level who, like Trump, baselessly claim that there is widespread election fraud that needs to be addressed. Laxalt has not only secured an endorsement from Trump but from other 2024 presidential hopefuls, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, and Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. But Laxalt still faces some competition in the primary as Sam Brown, a veteran and businessman, has been rising in the polls. In addition, there is frustration with voters in the Silver State who believe Laxalt is too close to the Republican establishment. While serving in Afghanistan as an Army infantry lieutenant, Brown was wounded by a roadside bomb attack and was sent to Texas to recover from his severe burn injuries. If Brown does pull off a win on Tuesday, it would be a political upset. Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto does not face any serious challengers in her primary, but it's the general election that will test the support she has within Nevada as voters grow frustrated with the first-termer over economic challenges in a tourist-driven state hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic and its subsequent fallout, including rising inflation. Meanwhile, in the primary races for the House, although it's expected that all three of Nevada's incumbent Democrats will survive, the general election may give them all cause for worry. Their seats have been rated as toss-ups by the Cook Political Report. Most in danger is Representative Dina Titus, who said she got F by the state legislature on how they drew her district. As for Nevada's gubernatorial race, all eyes will be on the GOP primary, where Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo is leading the very crowded field. Lombardo, who has plenty of name recognition around the state's most populated area, Las Vegas, has received an endorsement from Trump. Nevada's governor race later this year could potentially be a referendum on incumbent Democrat Steve Sisolak, who has had a somewhat difficult first term. Sisolak had to navigate the onset of COVID, which caused Nevada's tourism-based economy to suffer. Meanwhile, the GOP primary for Secretary of State is drawing attention to Jim Marchant, the leading GOP candidate in the race who has falsely claimed that Trump won the 2020 election. Marchant's candidacy is an example of a national trend involving supporters of the big lie who are running for offices like Secretary of State in order to influence how elections are conducted. If Marchant wins his primary, he will most likely face off against Cisco Aguilar in November. On Tuesday in South Carolina, incumbent Republican Representatives Nancy Mace and Tim Rice are the two main objects of Trump's rage after having denounced him in the wake of the January 6 attack. They're now up against Trump-endorsed opponents for races the former president has called two of the most critical primary elections in the country. Mace, the freshman congresswoman who just days into her term condemned Trump's claims about his election being stolen, is being challenged by cybersecurity analyst and former state representative Katie Arrington, whom Trump called a true Republican. "I am trying to communicate to my colleagues in Congress that rhetoric has real consequences," Mace said on ABC News Live on January 6, 2021. And in fact, when I came up for this weekend with my children for my swearing-in, I actually put them on the first plane home on Monday morning because I was worried about what might happen today because of the rhetoric we've been hearing, she said then. Mace, running in the state's 1st District seat, is ambassador and two-term South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Tuesday's primary may put Haley, a rumored 2024 presidential hopeful, to the test against Trump. The presence of Lynz Piper Loomis on the ballot makes a runoff more likely if no candidate receives 50% of the vote. In South Carolina's 7th Congressional District, State Representative Russell Fry has earned the endorsement of Trump against 5-term Representative Rice, who has consistently defended his post-Jan. 6 impeachment vote and condemnation of Trump's role in the insurrection. Rice's break with Trump is notable as his district has displayed staunch support for the former president. It voted for Trump by a 19-point margin in 2020. The special election for Texas' 34th District seat has been a study in the kinds of races national Democrats and Republicans may deem as winnable, all in a contest to serve just 6 months in an area carved up by redistricting anyway. Voters there will head to the polls for a 3rd time this election season to cast a ballot for a short-term representative. This race is separate from the one being decided in November's general election contest. In March, former Congressman Philemon Vela resigned to work in the private sector after already announcing he would not seek re-election the year before. The situation speeds up the race for candidates already in the running while offering Republicans the chance to take advantage of their growing popularity in the heavily Latino area. Meanwhile, national GOP groups appear to be going all in on the possibility of a pending Democrats' head start ahead of the general election and are pouring money into the race. Dems have largely avoided the special election, whereas Republicans have poured money into the race. Just last month, they spent more than $1 million. A Democrat will represent TX34 in January, Monica Robinson, a spokesperson for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, said in a statement to the Texas Tribune. If Republicans spend money on a seat